My name is Walter Hendricks. I am 71 years old, and I've been sitting in this chair for the past hour, trying to find the right place to begin. I am not sure there is one. So I will just start with what I remember most clearly. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October. The light was doing that thing it does in autumn, coming in low through the kitchen window, catching the dust in the air, making everything look softer than it actually was. Margaret was in the garden. I remember that because I could see her through the glass. She was wearing that old green cardigan she refused to throw away, the one with the frayed cuffs. She had her back to me. She was just standing there, not doing anything in particular, just standing. I was at the table with some papers, work things, things that felt urgent at the time. I remember looking up at her for a moment, just a moment. And then I look back down. I have thought about that moment almost every day for the last 9 years, not because anything dramatic happened that afternoon. No argument, no door slamming, no words that cut deep. That is the part that took me so long to understand. It was not a moment of conflict. It was a moment of nothing. And somehow, that nothing was the thing that changed everything. Margaret and I were married for 34 years. We were not an unhappy couple. I want to be clear about that. We laughed together. We raised 2 children in that house. We sat at that same kitchen table for decades, drinking coffee in the morning before the world woke up. There were good years, real ones, but somewhere, and I could not tell you exactly when, something in the house changed. Not loudly, not in a way that announced itself. It changed the way a room gets cold when a window has been left open somewhere far away. You feel it before you understand it. Margaret was a quiet woman, not shy. Quiet is different. She thought carefully before she spoke. She noticed things other people walked past. She had this way of sitting at the end of the day, just still, hands in her lap, and I used to think she was simply resting. I understand now that she was waiting, not for something to happen, for someone to ask. I was not a man who asked, not because I did not care. I cared deeply. I think I did, in my own way. But I had grown up in a house where feelings were managed, not spoken, where you showed love by working hard, by being present, by not leaving. I thought being there was enough. I did not know that a person can be standing right beside you and still feel completely alone. There was an evening. The children were teenagers then, so this must have been sometime in the late 90s, when Margaret sat down across from me after dinner and said, very quietly, "Walter, do you ever feel like we are just living beside each other?" I remember the question. I remember setting down my glass. And I remember saying something like, "What do you mean?" "I am right here." She looked at me for a moment. Then she nodded slowly, and she got up and started clearing the dishes. I thought the conversation was finished. I did not realize it had never been allowed to begin. The children grew up, as children do. First Helen, then Paul. The house got quieter, and I think I expected that quiet to bring Margaret and me closer together. That is what people say, is it not? That once the children leave, you find each other again. But you can only find something that has not already slipped away. We were not cruel to each other. I need you to understand that. We were polite, considerate even. We still shared meals. We still watched the evening news. We still slept in the same bed. But something between us had gone thin, like a fabric washed too many times. Still there, but worn through in places you could almost see the light. That Tuesday in October, the one I started with. I did not know then that Margaret had already made a decision. Not a dramatic one, not the kind that announces itself with raised voices and packed bags. A quiet one, the kind that gets made in the silence between two people who have stopped reaching toward each other. 3 weeks after that afternoon, she told me she was going to stay with her sister for a while. She said she needed some time. I asked her how long. She said she did not know. She did not come back, not to stay. We divorced 2 years later. The papers were calm, almost gentle, in the way that very sad things sometimes are. We divided things fairly. No lawyers fighting, no bitterness spoken out loud, just two people standing in the kitchen one last time, figuring out who got which set of dishes. She lives in Edinburgh now, with a woman named Frances who grows herbs on her windowsill and takes her to the coast on weekends. Margaret sounds happy when we speak on the phone, which is not often, but it happens. She sounds like herself in a way that I am not sure I ever allowed her to be when we were together. That is not easy to say, but it is true. What left our house that October afternoon was not Margaret. She was still there for 3 more weeks. What left was the last quiet hope she had been carrying. The hope that I might one day set down whatever I was reading and walk to that kitchen window and simply ask her, "What are you thinking about standing out there?" She was not asking for grand gestures. She was not asking me to change who I was entirely. She was asking to be wondered about. And I did not know how to do that. I live alone now. The house is the same house, same kitchen window, same autumn light in October. I make 1 cup of coffee in the morning. I sit at the table where I used to sit, and sometimes I look out at the garden, and I understand now what she was doing out there. She was not gardening. She was waiting to see if I would come. I am 71 years old, and I am only now learning the difference between being present and being there. They are not the same thing. I wish someone had told me that 30 years ago. I wish I had been the kind of man who already knew. If something in this has stayed with you, a memory, a face, a moment you have never quite explained to yourself, you do not have to do anything with it. Sometimes it is enough just to let it sit. I am still learning how to do that myself.